Welcome to the Tiny Gospel Radio Hour. We're here today with Joann White, who is a Presbyterian pastor and author and spiritual director. And you have at least one or more than that corgis now, Joann. How many?
We have two now. We
You have
just
two.
2 weeks ago went and got our second, just a little guy. And there's lots of corgi wrestling going on in our home right now.
Yeah, yeah, little churches and modestly sized dogs.
That's it. Lots of joy.
Lots
Mhm.
of joy. So how long now have you been serving the folks at Saranac Lake?
I've been here for 21 years. So I came like very beginning of January in 2005, coming to Saranac Lake from the Chicago area. So Saranac Lake is in the Adirondacks of New York State. Uh, just a huge state park that is the size of Massachusetts, and that's a mix of private and public land. So it's a really interesting place to minister. The village is like maybe about 4,000 year-round residents. It's the largest community in the park. But we have a huge influx of summer visitors, people who come uh, camping or have seasonal homes or just want to get out and recreate in the summer.
Right. And how, a little bit about the history. What's Saranac Lake as a church like? When was it founded? What are its
Yeah,
dynamics?
sure. So the church was founded in 1890 and by the Presbytery of Champlain, which is no longer in existence, but were a series of churches in the Champlain Valley that saw the Adirondacks as the last great mission field of the East. So they hired Richard McCarthy, who founded this church and was the pastor here for the first 3 years, to plant churches starting in Saranac Lake and then moving west along the railroad line toward Lake Ontario. And so he was here for 3 years, and the big burgeoning of population at that time, the community was larger than it is now, was the cold air cure for tuberculosis. So people came
The
from
the cold air cure.
the cold air cure. So
Okay.
Edward Livingston Trudeau came here with tuberculosis in the, I think, maybe 1880s, and thinking that probably he was going to come here and die. He was a physician, and he got better. So there was a theory that it was the cold air that cured people, and they used to bring people up here, and in the sub-zero winter nights, they would bundle them all up and they would sleep out on these cure porches. Um, but we think the real cure was rest, clean air, and good food. But people came here from everywhere. They say they came in during the day and then the bodies went out at night. So people came here and healed. Some came here and died. But that was a huge industry here until the advent of tuberculosis, or I'm sorry, antibiotics post World War II.
Antibiotics are definitely kind of would be the preference rather than lying out in the freezing cold with
Yes, yes.
tuberculosis. It's a
Yeah. So it's an interesting history. And, the church since then, since the kind of the cold air cure went bust, has struggled to kind of find identity. Who are we without tuberculosis? And we do continue to have a couple of research facilities in the area that do medical research into infectious disease and tuberculosis. But I think we've kind of settled on this kind of 3 seasons: come here and enjoy the outdoors and love the beauty and get some exercise,
and
kind of
and don't
kind of
have
thing.
tuberculosis.
And don't have tuberculosis. Yes.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the when congregations struggle to find identity, which I think we often do in transitions, the who are
Yeah.
we without tuberculosis, I don't think is one I've heard before.
Yeah. Yeah. But and then there's always like this wistful time for the golden days, but do you really want the return of tuberculosis? I don't know.
Not so much. I
Yeah.
think I think maybe consumption is not the goal.
Very true. Yeah, yeah.
So dynamics of the community now. What is describe the church as it is?
Yeah, so our church, we have a number of doctors in the congregation. We have a couple of, we have maybe three MDs, we have two tuberculosis researchers, we have a couple of people with academic PhDs. We've got a lot of teachers. People who've worked in the forestry industry. And then lots of people who just fall in love with the Adirondacks and figure out a way to come here, and they may cobble together multiple jobs over the course of a year in order to make ends meet. Or they make hay in the summer and then they figure out how to live during the winter from the savings of that.
Yeah. Given the history and the makeup of the church, I know a lot of congregations really struggled to make their way through the COVID years. Did
Yeah.
did the particular history and current makeup of your church help in getting through those years?
That's such a good question. And, when the pandemic first hit, like that was kind of the point that I returned to and preached from is that we've done this before. We know what it is like to live with contagion and to not only survive, but to prosper through that. We were probably in terms of the congregations in town, one of the most conservative in our approach in terms of social distancing and things like that. So we were completely shut down from kind of day zero to June, and then we reopened. We moved to our great hall. We were untethered from our pipe organ. Oh my goodness, what a change that is to have a piano and a soloist and and we had to start live streaming. So this was like dragging us kicking and screaming into the 21st century. But that's ended up being kind of a vital ministry that we can end up with many more live streams or streams of our service than we have people in the congregation. And, probably like a lot of churches, we have some people we haven't seen since the pandemic who may worship online or who, uh, you know, are still COVID fearful. But we also had a lot of newness that came in at the same time. And we made it. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I know a lot of congregations did significantly struggle, and the smaller you were, the harder it was to adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah. We were fortunate. We also were able to write a little grant at the beginning from a local foundation that helped us get things like hand sanitizer dispensers and helped with the costs of technology to begin getting the service online. We had some nice little pieces that fell into place that supported us through that.
Yeah, so now that we are um, just in a period where COVID happens to be bopping around endemically,
Yeah.
and things are sort of back to normal. Where have things landed now? I mean, as we press our way into the latter portion of the 2020s, what's vibrant, what's energizing in your community
Yeah.
now?
So good question. We have a really wonderful music minister, very gifted with the pipe organ and a great choir that music is a real joy for the church. Um, I did sabbatical last year, and I came back with two very clear leadings in terms of directions that I felt God was calling me to grow in my ministry. And one was reaching out to immigrants. And that had started the year before. We had a large Afghan family who were priority one refugees who relocated to the community. and just became fast friends with them. And that friendship has been so good for our church. But then, with what's going on in our nation right now in terms of the experience of immigrants and refugees, it seemed like there was a gospel mission to happen there in terms of welcoming the stranger and meeting people where they're at. So we have a group we started in Saranac Lake called the Saranac Lake Area Immigrant Allies. And it's kind of a grassroots organization with a bunch of young people in it. Thank God. And so last night we had our first potluck for new Americans, that people could come and bring a dish to share and get to know one another. But there's another element of that group that's doing rapid response, and another part of the group is doing direct support in terms of helping people settle in to the North Country. So that was one area that's been kind of burgeoning with us. And the other, I don't know about your church, David, but is care for caregivers, that just an increasing number of people in the community. So we also have a lot of people who retire to Saranac Lake. So people who end up maybe caring for a spouse who has disability or dementia, or maybe sandwich generation, people who have kids at home and parents undergoing serious life changes, or who have a disabled loved one. So doing outreach and ministry around that, and starting a support group that I co-facilitate with a social worker for caregivers. So those are kind of two big outreach things right now. And then we just kind of continue the week in, week out stuff, the Christian education. We just finished a program year with Romans, which was really challenging in many ways, but really spoke to the times. And worship. I think worship is kind of the sweet spot of who we are.
Yeah, yeah, which it should be. Um,
Yeah.
nice, homey little gathering. So as you've engaged with not just Saranac, like I mean, I would say that's the majority of ministry. What was the point where, I mean, you'd had ministries before where you
Yeah.
realized, because I think particularly for congregations that are modest or smaller in size, consistency in pastoral leadership is a key feature of health. So folks who like, I'm here and eventually I love it so much I'm just going to stay. when
Exactly.
when
Yeah.
was there a point where you realized this isn't like prior ministries and I'm actually going to stick with this?
Yeah, another great question. So when I was called to Saranac Lake, I had the very bizarre experience of getting three calls in the same week after having searched for about 6 months and thinking like no one wants a woman pastor anymore. I didn't know what to think. And the other two calls were to much larger churches in one in an urban area and in another in like a county seat. And this church was the smallest and had the biggest problems. But I knew I had very particular gifts that this church needed. They'd been through like a time of schism after with the departure of their last pastor. And so I thought, David, I was going to come here for like 4 or 5 years, do like some healthy congregations, healing work, and kind of move on from there. But I really kind of fell in love with the church and with the community. And also I could tell, so the average tenure of a pastor here was about 5 years. And there was a lot of kind of acting out until about 5 years. And I'd say about 6 years, they realized, she may stay. She may be one who is really gonna stick with us. And like I believe in doing always having a little something, some newness going on. So we did kind of healthy congregations, and then we did a couple rounds of natural church development, which is another one of those church growth strategies. And we found we needed to grow in the area of spirituality, which is like up my alley. But we found we love,
It's the best sort of growth.
yeah. and we found we love the outdoors. So we began doing campouts together and hiking together. And suddenly, like, there was kind of this special thing that happened with the congregation that, like, we were getting fed um, like of course, God was at the heart of it, but there was something in the coming together in the community that made it really special or remarkable or different from every other little church in town. And um, yeah, like I think about don't tell anyone. Now I think about retiring, one of these days, and like how much I'll miss it, that there is a level of attachment and deep love for both the church and the people here that it will be hard to let go someday.
No, I think it's especially difficult when I think the 5-year margin that you've talked about is
Yeah,
pretty consistent in the literatures about smaller congregations and intimate communities. It's if you're used to people coming and going, a pastor really only starts to matter when it's clear they love the place and that they're going to stay as long as they can. And that tends to be at around the 5-year mark where
yeah,
you
yeah.
really start being able to get things done or to support the community in getting
Mhm.
things done.
Yeah. And that's another kind of vital piece that's really beautiful about being in a small community is that you end up pastoring to so many people beyond the walls of the church. So, over the years, I've been very involved with our addiction treatment center for a long time and with our food pantry and a number of different concerns. And I often, this is a beautiful thing. I can like walk to work. It's, a little less than a mile. So you just get to know all these people. And it's just becomes the fabric of your life. And you can make a healing, caring, helping difference in the lives of a lot of different people.
Yeah. And that gives a sense of pastoral purpose, I think, in a way that often programs or if you get sucked into the vortex of policies, procedures, and protocol management, that it becomes
Yeah.
so much more about the relationships within the church and relationships within the community.
Yeah, and I think it's very New Testament.
Yeah,
That there you are just kind of grounded in the community and meeting people where they're at and discerning what the needs are and bringing whatever the good news looks like in that particular situation. Mhm.
yeah. And it takes, like embedding and small churches are families of families. They have a much more tribal character, and it takes a
Yeah.
while. The family dynamics are complicated, and getting a real sense and feel for that takes time.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And winning the trust of those pillars can take a long time. And when I first came, I had a really powerful, dynamic group of older women in the church who were so gifted, but also so challenging. Really could be really. I used to say to my husband, I'm just not sure how to pastor this person, and and as a woman, it's you have to resist projection that would make you a daughter. So there was some of that tension going on. But over time, they ended up needing a pastor. They needed someone to sit with them and be with them or mourn with them in certain circumstances. And that just takes time to wear down or to become part of that family system. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it certainly can be.
Yeah,
But eventually, hopefully that form of affection and love that comes, well, this person is my pastor. and I guess they just are, and they're just
Yeah,
present, and they become you sort of ease into that fabric,
yeah.
which for me has always been it's a challenge in if you're interiming. And I know there are people who are called to those forms of healing ministry, but I think for smaller churches, you can't make change until you have trust, and trust takes time.
Very true. Yeah. And kind of hearkening back to what you said about the 5 year mark, I had a really wise professor in seminary who said, your real ministry doesn't start until you've been there 5 years. And that's kind of the threshold where kind of the magic begins to happen in a community. And that's true with personal relationships within the church too.
Yeah, you got to get to know folks.
Mhm.
uh, so you've written stuff, and certainly I have here a copy of "Blessed Be the Tie," which I
Thank you.
it's in my. I have a little shelf of books that were signed. um, so, how much in your own creative work, in writing and other forms of creativity, has being part of a small church been an inspiration?
Oh, hugely, hugely influential. Yeah. So, Blessed Be the Tie is a collection of stories that began as messages that I shared with my congregation. So, each is based in a scripture passage, but then considers how the passage speaks to the life of the situation in like the midst of the lives of these imaginary characters. And the first one I wrote of this kind of sermon was in the book. It's called Love One Another, and it's about a relationship. It's about a truly unlovable character in a congregation. And every church has a hard to love person, at least one hard to love person that no matter what you try, you feel like you can't win. That your efforts at love are thwarted. Um, but it's
I have no idea what you're talking about.
right. but but it's like the persistence that makes the difference, that we are in relationship over time, and love gets expressed in these ways that are hard to describe or only come into focus, with hindsight. So Yuli McVicker, the unlovable character, um, ends up dying. Oh, I ruined this story for everyone.
Mm.
But there is this profound outpouring of grief that surprises someone who felt most challenged by him, and the pastor is able to articulate it as love. And so I told that story, and I had such a profound reaction to it in the congregation. And first of all, as if they were real people, like, why didn't he do this or why didn't she do that? They wanted to know. And I'm just like, it's just a story, it's a story. But also, it created this space where people could begin to talk about relationships that they'd found, that they loved hard to love people, or they were struggling to love someone who was being unlovable with them. So the story started out as kind of teaching moments or inviting us to look at life from a slightly removed perspective, that invited us into reflection and conversation and a little emotional depth. And then they just took on their own lives. So my church calls them the Pastor Bob stories, and they have a big personality, so I can't tell them too often. But I always tell one at Christmas time. There's a whole series of Pastor Bob Christmas sermons. Yeah.
Well, all of which wended their way into these narratives, and I mean, and given that so much of the dynamic of a in the same way that families are united by like common stories and mutual understandings and stories that are told and retold, those same dynamics come up in
Yeah.
like human scale communities like the small church. You're not sort of the reflection on that really does inspire. Yeah, we share this. We understand this story and its place in our collective narrative together.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. It fits into the puzzle, and maybe it fits in a way that shines a little light or deepens our understanding or gives us permission to feel the way that we do and to know that it's, we are this beautiful, blessed, broken community of faith, and we're all grappling our way toward what we hope is the beloved community, and we're in it together.
yeah, and as you have stories that in the resharing you can either weep over or laugh at together,
Yeah, yeah.
it does make a difference. And I think maybe that 5 year mark on pastors is the point at which they have enough stories about you that they feel they can integrate you into their storytelling.
That could be. Yeah, and writing, so the protagonist, Pastor Bob, is of course a man, so I always say he's my male alter ego,
Right.
and he's both the best of me and the worst of me. He's can be a bit of a bumbler, but it was like really, there was something in it for me too, in thinking and framing it around his experience and how he is functional or dysfunctional in any given situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course there's never any actual person who inspires any of the characters.
Oh no, never.
Never, never. At best, they are hopefully unrecognizable amalgams of peoples and
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah, they're as they say in the world of creative nonfiction, they're composite characters.
Composites, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So as you know, as you've pastored, I mean, obviously pastoring has its particular challenges, but being in a community of the size you're in, have they been, I mean, it sounds like they've been encouraging of creative work, creative thinking, time to take space aside to do more interesting stuff. To what extent has smaller church life been grist for creativity for you?
Yeah, yeah. So I think they love it. Like they love having a pastor who writes, and there's a certain element of they love the creativity or the surprise on Sunday mornings that you never know exactly what's going to happen in that worship service. Um, so they love that, and uh, I, I, I decided, so in a small church, doing a doctor of ministry is like, can be a waste of time. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's a wonderful thing to do with a degree, but do you do something that really serves your church for one thing? And it's not like you're going to get a huge promotion or a huge raise coming out of your doctor of ministry. Um, but Pittsburgh Seminary began this brand new program called Creative Writing and Doctor Ministry in Creative Writing and Public Theology. And I thought, oh my goodness, that sounds like it's right up my alley. So I took it to my session. They were so excited about it. They thought it was sounded like something that I would really benefit from, and they thought they would benefit from it too. Um, so I finished that up last year, but it just made me a much better writer, to have other people workshopping my work, but it also freed up new levels of creativity. And people loved that in on Sunday mornings too. They would say, "Oh, I think you're getting even better." So affirmative in that way. I think the challenge for small church pastors is finding the time for like your writing away from church. Like it's easy to write church adjacent stuff, but you know, um, to have dedicated time for your own publication and things like that. It's hard to hammer out the time. Um, but I feel like my church has just been in my corner, yeah, the whole way with trying to find my voice as a writer and deepen my creative engagement with scripture.
Yeah, and as that journey has continued, do you have stuff you're working on now?
Yeah, so I have a book that is hopefully ready for publication that I'm just finishing up a proposal for to shop around to publishers. You know that
I know that dance.
what's that like? Yeah. So, and it comes out of my Doctor of Ministry project, and it's called The Third Testament. And it is a collection of stories and sonnets, short stories and sonnets that,
Sonnet.
yeah, yeah, that which I never would have written if I hadn't done this program, that looks at the stories and experiences of scripture from the point of view of people who maybe are typically voiceless or who are present in the story, but we have they're unnamed. Or it's the crowd, maybe from the perspective of the crowd, or there's a perspective of them that's very shaded by thousands of years of interpretation. So examples are I have the story of the 10th leper who returned, the Samaritan leper who returns to give thanks to Jesus. And the story of the woman at the well who's always been characterized as a prostitute, just like Mary Magdalene. Gee, why is that? And but of
Just
her,
because you have a complex relational background does not mean that.
but has the story of her experience with five husbands,
Yeah.
um, and or Michal, who is David's first wife, who's always characterized as a shrew and deserving of abandonment. Who is a first wife and deserving to run the household, who ends up being a marginalized character, or Hagar, Abraham and Sarah's servant, who is kind of forced into surrogacy. And Will Gaffney calls her a womb slave. What's that experience like? That, and to think about our patriarchs, forcing a woman into pregnancy and then throwing her away. So those kinds of stories, and it was really enlivening to work on those and develop those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the process of shopping around and
Yeah, yeah,
returning back into ministry after sabbatical.
yeah,
How is that? I mean, as I think if you're there are certain congregations that where Sabbath is taking a Sabbath season is absolutely necessary for sanity and creativity. But the process of coming back after sabbatical into a congregation that's not huge, um,
yeah.
how was it? Were you looking forward to getting back?
So I think by the time, so I was out for 15 weeks, and my last sabbatical had been 10 years before. So I was definitely overdue, but kind of COVID got in the way there. And also, I was sick in there. I got breast cancer and came through that. So coming back, like I was out long enough that I was ready. Like I had like the leading about working with immigrants and with doing some special care for caregivers, those were bubbling and ready to come forth. And then we planned with our sabbatical activities for the church that kind of matched what I was doing on sabbatical. So Dwayne and I, as a chunk of our sabbatical, walked the Camino de Santiago, about 180 miles of it. And so our church did some study and reading and small groups around pilgrimage, and they did a pilgrimage to Montreal, to St. Joseph's Oratory. So they had been kind of exploring these themes at the same time. And then when you've been together for so long and then you're apart and you come back together, there's like this joyous sense of like, oh, I missed you, and an appreciation of that there had been a hole left behind by you, and that even though it was really well filled by some talented people who stepped in, that that there was kind of this very sweet coming back together. Mhm.
Yeah, which happens when you've spent that much of a chunk of your life with a group of other souls.
Yeah, so true. Very true. Yeah. And and I was just so darn happy to see them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which again it's more like a homecoming
Yeah.
once you just have the sense that this is your community. This
Hmm.
is the place where you're doing ministry, and to be in that position where time away is a blessing, but the return is equally a blessing.
Yeah. And then I think, you're recharged and you've got, some fresh wind in your sails, and just there's a kind of like this wonderful burgeoning of newness, whether it's like your energy in the pulpit, or your creativity in worship, or the launching of new programs, or the reinvigorating of some old stuff, or the letting go, of things that like only two people show up for, and that kind of stuff.
Now,
Yeah.
let's dive into that for a second. I mean, if you've been in a church for decades, you really do learn the process by which you put you sort of you honor but let old programs or things go. How
Yeah.
negotiating that process can often be a challenge in some communities. How has that worked in your experience of ministry?
Yeah.
The letting go of, but we've done this.
Yeah, we've always done it this way, but we've
Yeah.
always done it this way. Yeah, so that's a challenge. And, I think a question I always ask myself is there fruit from this ministry? That I think that God wants our ministries to be fruitful and life-giving. And is there fruit, or is that like dead on the vine? That we're just doing out of habit, like time after time after time. And I think, there are some clues that I look for. Am I having a hard time getting volunteers to help with the program? Are people showing up? And have I lost energy and enthusiasm about it? Has praying for it not helped? Um, and there kind of will reach this critical mass where I just think, I can't do this anymore, or, we're not called to do this anymore. And so sometimes I'll start in sneaky ways where I just like don't offer it. So like movie night. I think so we have a big screen, another advent of the pandemic, and I thought, it's great. We'll just do movies, and people can come and be socially distanced and watch movies. And at first it was like there'd be like 30 people come out for a movie night. It's like, whoa, this is the best ever. And then like the last movie night I did, even the people who recommended the movie to be shown didn't show up. So I had set up the projector and everything. I had the popcorn made, the candy was out, and it had been dwindling for a while. And I thought, you know what, this is not a fruitful ministry. So
Right. And
yeah.
so it's time for it to settle down. I think particularly if in a pastoral role there is this desire, particularly if you've had like it sort of started under your care, like, well, this just has to keep going,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's essential, particularly I think particularly in a smaller church, if the energy isn't present in the community for something,
Yeah.
if you don't have and it doesn't have to be a lot of folks, but if there aren't like two or three gathered around this concept and passionate about it, and everyone's just tired, then it's just like,
Yeah.
well, all right, we're just kind of tired, and you don't want to show up to see this movie. So
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe the energies of, I mean, the spirit is moving somewhere else. That might have
Yeah.
been something for a season, and it's time to let it be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, if there is some like, oh, why don't we do this anymore? I always say, I think that's a great idea. Was sorry to let that go. Would you like to take the lead on kind of reinvigorating that, or would you like to explore that with some people? And invariably, David, no one wants to do that. So like they're happy to have that as a program out there that they may or may not come to, but they don't want to make the commitment to it. So yeah, so it can be let go, and maybe that frees a space for something new. Yeah.
It's space and energy and gifts to be applied elsewhere, and it's, yeah, basically, for I think, for a past, when you're pastoring, you have to be willing to say, it is no, if this is set to rest, this is fine.
Yeah.
If you've got a deep passion, I will support you in this, and we'll see if it revitalizes. But I am not going to be the one to do it.
Yeah, I don't feel
Um,
called to do this
and
anymore.
if you don't feel called to do it, and if no one
Yeah.
feels called to do it, then the call does not exist,
Yeah.
and you can set it back, set it down.
Yeah, and I think, you can even talk about it in that way too, like what is God calling us to do? What is um the place where there's energy and the movement of the spirit that is inviting us to step into. Yeah. And but it's a little bit can be a little bit like with writing Killing Your Darlings, where you're writing something and you have a piece that you just absolutely love, and you get it workshopped and you find out no one thinks that is good. You have to like take it out and like set it aside, and maybe it'll develop into something else. So you have to also be willing to, I have to also be willing to do that self-critical piece. Like, am I really called to do this? Or is this just something that for whatever reasons I've gotten attached to, or I think has to happen? And maybe it doesn't need to happen. Or maybe people were just showing up to please me, or to, oh, the pastor's doing this, so we need to come.
We have to go.
We have
Yeah,
to. We've
yeah.
always
If
done it this way. We have to go. Yeah.
we have to go, as opposed to, I really want to go. I really want
Yeah.
this to
Yeah.
occur.
Yeah.
And and it's difficult. It's difficult letting ministries go, but there does come a
Yeah.
point where you have to say, I mean, I think, to speak to one that both you and I can relate to, when New York Avenue closed down the 7 to 9 Club.
Ah.
I know, it's like, ow, but I'm
Yeah.
not there. You're not there.
Yeah.
This is for folks who are hearing this. This is a ministry for the indigent mentally ill at New York Avenue Presbyterian Church that was around for decades, and actually where Joann and I had first met and worked together.
And definitely where I had a sense of calling to ministry. Yeah,
Likewise,
that emerged
likewise,
from that. Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe
But
not to this form of ministry, but I knew God was calling me. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that ministry did reach a point where they couldn't get volunteers. It became harder and harder to interface with the organizations that brought folks in, and then you had COVID.
Yeah.
For
Oh,
a fellowship ministry, there was just no way past that,
yeah.
and it had to be set down. So
Yeah.
it's like, why won't they do that? And the answer is, well, so I can, even though I know better, I understand that feeling when someone really has a deep attachment to and sees value
Oh,
in
yeah.
something,
Yeah.
but it just, that's that spirit, that calling is no longer present in that place. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah. Well, New York Avenue, I'm sure will find some other way to have a fellowship ministry that blesses and calls people and
Oh,
serves
it
people.
does. It
Yeah.
does, and it continues to, just not Not at 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock on
I
Wednesday evenings every
know.
week.
Over the iced tea and coffee with the funky dance moves and the
Exactly.
crocheting and yeah.
Exactly. So we all have to be willing to let things go when the time comes for that to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Wise words.
Yeah, it's sort of I take it as I call it the Gamaliel test,
Mm.
from Acts, where the apostles have been brought before the Sanhedrin, and it's Gamaliel who makes the argument. Just let them do
Yeah.
what they're doing. If it
And
is,
if it's
if
right,
it's, if
it'll
it's
either
God,
be blessed or not. Yeah.
exactly. If it succeeds, then and is blessed and thrives, then God is at work in it. And if these are just men doing sort of egotistical things around another false Messiah, it will collapse.
Mhm.
So let's just let the Spirit move and be the decider.
Mm.
It's a
Good
fun little,
reminder from scripture. Yeah.
just a wee little reflection
I
there.
think there's a sermon in that. Yeah.
Yeah, very. I think there have been several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Other things going on in existence. I mean, as you're looking at this upcoming season.
Yeah, so summer is busy time for us because we have more people coming into the community, and the dynamics of the congregation change significantly in terms of how many people are in worship and who is in worship. Um, so yeah, and we've got some fun things we do in the summer. We always have a church picnic that's very popular, where we grill and bring side dishes and enjoy fellowship and vespers and communion outdoors. Um, I know you guys are you still gardening in Poolsville?
Yep, the community garden continues to crank along. Summer is a busy time in the garden with
It,
weeding,
yeah.
where we are at the growth and greening stage, not quite at harvest, right at the cusp of it.
Yeah,
So
we
that's a
do. Yeah, we do the same with growing veggies for our food pantry. And then a few years ago, we've got a big flower bed, and we do bouquets on Sunday morning, like maybe as many as 8 to 10 that we just send out into the community. Like take it out to someone who needs a little extra love. And the first week, like maybe like 2 bouquets went, and at by the end of this summer, that first year, like people were like arriving early at church so they could claim bouquets to take to people. So I think we try to think about creative ways to reach out in the summer too, that are just about um, sharing the love and building community beyond the walls of the church, and that's always fun. We're doing actually this summer. I'm doing an Earth Care book group where we're reading Robin Wall Kimmerer's The Serviceberry, um, Andrew Peterson's The God of the Garden, and John Philip Newell's A Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul. That we're doing a little uh, Care for Creation book group this summer. So that's going on. Yeah.
that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, we can chat a little bit after I close down our podcast
Yeah.
recording, but it's been a pleasure hearing about you, your ministry, your writing. Best of luck with the next book,
Thank you.
and I hope you um, have a lovely summer season as the church gathers and shares flowers and beauty and worship, enjoying
Thank
creation. So,
you. Yeah,
so
good to visit, David.
yeah, well, this has been the Tiny Gospel Radio Hour. Radio Hour. We've been talking with Joann White, and y'all have a blessed rest of your day.